Hello, my name is Krista Beebe, and I am a director with TNTP. We're going to spend some time digging into how you can identify whether students have access to grade-appropriate math assignments using the Math Student Work Review tool from the Opportunity Myth. We will use what we learned from the last session to start digging into some actual math assignments to determine if they are grade-appropriate. When you leave this session, you will have the tools to help you think critically about the work you are putting in front of your own students and how it aligns to STEM career possibilities. To get the most out of this training series, we ask that you complete session 1, What is the Opportunity Myth?, before going to this session. This session is our first content-specific session, and we encourage all math teachers or leaders who support math teachers to join. You can expect to spend approximately 1 hour on each of these sessions. In that hour, you will watch the session videos as well as engage in some practice using various tools that we will introduce throughout the sessions. For today's session, you will have a resource folder that you will have access to that you can open on your computer. You may also want to have a paper and pen or pencil to jot down some notes and do some practice. As a reminder, all sessions will be asynchronous, and there will be opportunities for you to engage with the content. Throughout all the STEM.LD orientation sessions, you will see these 3 symbols on this screen to signal engagement opportunities throughout the sessions. When you see the orange symbol, you will want to open the STEM.LD resource folder. When you see the blue symbol, you will pause the video for reflection. And when you see the green symbol, you will pause the video for practice. And remember, at the end of each session, there will be a short survey that will capture your attendance. You will find a bit.ly and a QR code on this screen that will lead you to a Google folder with the handouts for this session. You can access them by typing the web address into your browser or by using the camera on your phone to scan the QR code. Once you do that, you will find 2 resources that we will be using during our training today. Go ahead and open them now. Please feel free to pause this session while you access the documents. In our last session together, we shared the 4 key resources that influence a student's school experience and outcomes. For this session, we are going to focus on this first one, grade-appropriate assignments, specifically in the area of math. During our research for the Opportunity Myth, we found that students spent most of their time on assignments that were not grade level appropriate. And we also know that giving kids access to grade-appropriate assignments leads to a lot of growth, especially for kids who start the year behind. So we know it's important, but how do we ensure that we are giving kids access to grade-appropriate assignments? How do we ensure that they are getting the opportunity to engage with rigorous grade-level content as opposed to work that may, at first glance, appear to be aligned, but are missing some key pieces? So in our session today, those are the questions that we will answer. To do that, you will get some practice using the Tennessee Best for All tool. You'll also become familiar with TNTP's Math Assignment Review Protocol, and then you'll get a chance to practice assessing for focus, coherence, and rigor on the alignment of assignments. Throughout this session, we are going to focus our learning on how to ensure that the content we are putting in front of kids is grade appropriate. We will use TNTP's Math Assignment Review Protocol to help us figure that out. please take a minute to access the resource folder that was shared with you at the beginning of this session and locate the Student Work Review tool. You can see a picture of it on this slide. Pause this video and take a few minutes to read over the tool. Feel free to jot down any questions or things you notice about the tool. If your questions are not answered by the end of this session, please feel free to reach out. For today's training, we will focus on the content section of the tool, and we will work on the other two sections with your administrative teams. So pause here and take about 3 minutes to review the tool. Okay, we're going to begin walking through the tool now. As we go through the content section of the tool, refer back to your questions. If your questions are not answered by the end of the session, please reach out. As you likely noticed, the tool itself is organized into 4 sections: content, practice, relevance, and student performance. We're going to start with the content section and walk through it and then practice with it. The purpose of this practice is not that you become an expert at using the rating tool, but rather you can use the tool to guide your thinking about the content in the assignments you give kids. You'll notice that the content section highlights focus, coherence, and rigor. By evaluating an assignment in these areas, we will be able to determine if the content is grade appropriate. Let's take a deeper look at these components before jumping into some practice. Before we dive into focus, coherence, and rigor, we want to make sure that the assignment is focused on grade level standards. To do this, you must first determine which Tennessee standards the assignment focuses on. Or maybe the assignment is labeled with a standard, and you want to make sure that it really does address that standard. This is where the Best for All tool will come in handy. But before we go there, let's take a look at the rest of this part of our rating tool. To rate this indicator, consider whether the task is only comprised of grade level standards, or if standards from other grade levels or non-grade level standards are also present. When there are multiple skills addressed in one assignment, you should align every single question to the appropriate standard and determine what % of questions are aligned to grade level standards before rating the question. This indicator has 3 rating options: yes, partially, and no. If the assignment focuses on multiple skills and all questions or tasks are grade appropriate, then rate this question a yes. Answer partially to this question if the assignment has any content that is aligned to below grade level or non-grade level standards, but also has at least one grade level question. If no questions in the assignment are aligned to the grade level standards, the rating for this question should be a no, and the overall content rating should be a 0 or no opportunity. If this happens when you're looking at an assignment, you don't need to go any further. You can stop here because it's not an appropriate assignment for your class. So now that you've identified the standards addressed by the assignment, you need to determine if the questions and tasks reach the depth of the grade level standards. For math, this is defined by the 3 shifts in instruction required to support students with mastering the skills in the Tennessee Math Standards: focus, coherence, and rigor. You will consider sub-questions aligned to each of these shifts to determine your final rating for this indicator. Let's begin with focus. The first question asks whether or not the assignment includes grade-appropriate numbers or number types and representations. Some standards specify number types. For example, a 6th grade standard asking students to find volumes with fractional side lengths. However, if a certain standard does not specify, you can consult the other grade level standards to see which number types are appropriate. Also, some standards specify representations. For example, standards that mention number sentences or equations involving symbolic representations. If the standard does not specify representations, it's fine to skip this sub-question. But we are primarily looking for places where an assignment misses an opportunity to use grade-appropriate or standard-dependent representations. You also want to notice if this assignment allows students to focus on the major work of the grade level. Does it provide too many scaffolds and take the focus off of the thinking? Or does the assignment have an emphasis on too many skills? Those are the things that you want to ask yourself when you're considering focus. Let's move on to coherence. Here, you're going to see if there are multiple standards addressed in the assignment, and if there are, is there a coherent connection? If multiple standards are not addressed, another question that is important to consider globally, but not for the purpose of rating an individual assignment, is whether or not the content of the lesson aligns to major, supporting, or additional work of the grade. Remember, not all content in a given grade is emphasized equally in the standards. Some content requires greater emphasis based on the depth of the ideas, the time it takes to master, and/or the relative importance to future mathematics, or the demands of college and career readiness. And finally, let's take a deeper look at rigor. Rigor is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. So we want to make sure that when we say rigor, when we're looking at this tool, that we have a common definition of what that means. So we're going to be looking at the three aspects of rigor: conceptual understanding, procedural skill and fluency, and application. And these three aspects of rigor are often depicted as a three-legged stool, right? You've got to have all three of these for this stool to be stable. So each of these three aspects is critical and needs to be addressed for students to be able to reach the depth of learning that is expected by the standards. What we frequently see, however, is that many assignments default to practicing procedural skill and fluency at the expense of conceptual understanding and application, and then you just have a one-legged stool, which isn't super effective. So when you're looking for rigor when rating an assignment, you're looking for alignment between the rigor of the assignment and the rigor demanded by the standard. You're looking for a match between the two. Please take a minute to access the resource folder that was shared with you at the beginning of this session and locate the STEM.LD Rating Resources document. You can pause here if you need a minute to locate it. This document has some tools you can use to help you assess a task for focus, coherence, and rigor. You will want to have the Tennessee math standards handy so you can view the actual language of the standards. This can help you to determine if content of the assignment is grade level appropriate and fully reflects all aspects of the standards being addressed. It can also help us determine the appropriate aspects of rigor. You can access the Tennessee standards by clicking on the link in your document next to the Best for All Central. You can click on the website there. This document also has the standards for mathematical practices to help us determine whether the task incorporates these practices or not. Please take a minute to click on the website for Best for All Central and to click on the document for standards for mathematical practices. So let's see, what does this look like in action to use this tool? How can I use this to make sure that I'm giving students access to grade level assignments? Well, let's say that I'm a 6th grade teacher and I'm planning for next week's instruction. I know that we're getting ready to start our study on area, and I pull out this worksheet that a colleague gave me to use. I'm wondering if this assignment is grade appropriate, So I'm going to use the student work review tool to help me figure it out. Now you remember the first thing on that tool was to determine the standard that this worksheet is covering. Now I already know the standard because my colleague had it listed on top of the paper. So I know what the standard is, but I'm not quite sure if I remember exactly what it says. So I'm going to go to the Tennessee Best for All website to help me figure this out. So once I'm on the Best for All Central website, I can do a few things. I went ahead and I got to the Tennessee Math Standards, and before I go to that 6th grade standard, I just wanted to do a quick search for what kids did with area before they got to me. So I just typed in area, and it gave me all the standards that cover area. Well, I noticed that they started learning about area in 3rd grade with some concrete representations of unit squares to find the area of a rectangle. So that's what I learned by reading through these 3rd grade standards. And when I get into 4th grade, I noticed that students are applying area formulas and are working with more abstract representations for area, so no more unit squares. I also noticed that by 4th grade, they are multiplying 1 digit by 4 digit and 2 digit by 2 digit numbers when finding area. So I can figure all that out by clicking on these standards and reading more. When I get to 5th grade, they are working on area with fractional lengths. So that's kind of the progression of what they do with area, and I can find all that information on this website. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the standard that was listed for this worksheet, and let's take a closer look at this standard. All right, so when I look at this standard, it requires that students find the area of a variety of shapes, such as triangles, special quadrilaterals like parallelograms, and other polygons like pentagons. The only shape in the assignment that I'm looking at are rectangles. So when I think about how closely this aligns to my 6th grade standard, it's a little off because it's really more aligned with those 3rd and 4th grade standards where it was about rectangles and using the squares. This doesn't really reach what my 6th grade standard shows me at all. So now that I've looked at the standards, I'm going to come back to this assignment page. We figured out that it doesn't quite align with what is expected for 6th grade because of the types of shapes that it's using. It's more closely aligned to 3rd and 4th grade standards. So the focus is not on grade level content. But I'm going to keep looking just to see maybe there's something that I'm missing here. So let's look at what about coherence. So on our tool, if there are multiple standards that are addressed on the worksheet, we want to see if there is a coherent connection between them. This worksheet only addresses one standard, so I don't need to worry about that part. But then I start to think about how does this fit in the vertical scope? Well, I already discovered that the focus of this assignment more closely aligns to 3rd and 4th grade standards. The last part of coherence is considering if the assignment connects to the major work for the grade level. What about rigor? Does this task align to the rigor of the standard? Let's go back to the standard so we can see what that would look like. So when I look at this and read through this standard, I notice a few things that make me think that the rigor here is really focused on conceptual understanding. So in this standard, it calls out for students to find the area of a shape by composing it into rectangles or decomposing it into triangles and other shapes. Composing and decomposing shapes builds students' foundational understanding of the area formula for various shapes. For example, seeing that a parallelogram can be composed of 2 triangles helps students understand that area can be additive and provides an explanation for why the formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So when I go back and I look at this assignment, I see that in this assignment, it doesn't give kids an opportunity to build that conceptual understanding. In this assignment, students are only asked to calculate area using base times height formula, which reinforces procedural skill, not conceptual understanding. So when I go back to my student work review tool, I can say that this assignment partially focuses on grade level standards, but it does not reach the focus, coherence, and rigor. There is no opportunity there because less than half of the questions on the assignment reach the depth of the targeted grade level standard. So I would not want to use this assignment and put it in front of my kids. Okay, so now it's your turn to practice. Please take a minute to access the resource folder that was shared with you at the beginning of the session. Locate the STEM.LD Math Assignment Rating Practice document, which is on the right side of the screen, and the STEM.LD Rating Resource document, as well as your TNTP Student Work Review tool. You can pause here if you need a minute to locate it. On the Math Assignment Rating Practice document, you'll notice that there are assignments for 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and Algebra 1. There's also a link that will take you to the Best for All tool. Your task is to choose a grade level that you want to practice rating. One challenge you will face is determining which standard or standards the assignment is addressing. The Best for All tool will come in handy for that. So in a minute, you will pause the video here to practice rating an assignment. I've included the ratings and rationale for each assignment on the practice document, so you can check your work when you're finished. Remember, the goal is to practice internalizing the tool to help you make strong instructional decisions for your students, not to become an expert rater. So don't worry if your ratings are a little off of the ratings that I provided for you. I anticipate that this task will take you between 15 and 20 minutes. If you'd like to do rate more than one assignment for practice, please feel free to do so. So at this time, please pause the video to practice rating an assignment. Welcome back. So as you saw, all of these assignments were considered to be strongly aligned. They gave students a sufficient opportunity to meet the demands of the standards. So, now that you've had a chance to try using the STEM.LD tools to rate assignments, please pause the video to reflect for a minute. How does going through this process connect to the work we are doing in STEM.LD? We know that in order for kids to be prepared for the rigorous college classes that STEM careers require, they will need consistent access to grade-appropriate assignments. We know that just because an assignment is labeled with a grade level or standard, it doesn't mean that it's completely aligned. Using the tools from this training will help you ensure you are setting your kids up with the opportunities they need to pursue any career that interests them. So congratulations, you just finished Math Session 2. Our next session in this series will be Math Session 3 that focuses on rigorous math instruction. And remember, at the end of each session, we have an attendance survey. This survey is brief, has a couple questions about today's training, but it's also used to capture your attendance here. Once you've completed the survey, you will receive a confirmation email with the name and length of this session. You can access the survey by scanning the QR code with your phone or by typing in the bit.ly into your browser. So please take a minute to complete this survey before signing off for today. And thank you so much for your participation. If you have any questions or would like to chat more about today's session, you can reach out to me at the email address on your screen. Thank you.